Welcome to the 6th round of the Blitz tournament. Now we are playing guy who is right around 1700. He played d4, I went knight f6, c4 e6, knight f3. We go for a queen's gambit decline, d5, knight c3. Now knight b7, he went for e3. Now if I play c6, we're going to transpose into that Slav, but I played bishop to e7. He decided to take, I decided to take back, of course, with pawn, bishop d3, and c6. So we have a very good version of cards, but he went short side castles, but he didn't bring out this bishop, which is good for me. So I went castles myself, he went rook e1, now went rook e8, so at some point he need to play e4. And when he does that, I just take, we made all of these trades, and on the end of the day he's ending up with a IQP on d4. That's a big problem for him in the future, just because we can start pressuring the pieces that are protecting that pawn, and any sort of trade here leads to more comfortable endgame for black. He went for bishop e3, and now the advantage for black even goes up, because our pieces are better coordinated and we can play around IQP. That's why I played queen d5. I'm looking forward to trade on f3, ruin the pawn structure and trade queens, because in isolated pawn structures, you should always look for simplification. Not, of course, everything, but let's say queens are enough, just because you don't want to allow your opponent to create any sort of counterplay. He played h3. That's actually not the best move. We just take, exchange queens. And after g pawn takes, now it's time to pressure this pawn. There's a beautiful square for the knight. We can bring the rook to the games. I played knight e5 directly. So do not take this bishop. You're gonna just help your opponent to consolidate his pawn structure. Doesn't matter that they have a bishop here. Your knight is much stronger than his bishop on e3. a3, intending maybe to go b4. That's why I played a5. a5 is a good looking move for a moment, but later this could become sensible spot, because they can bring the pieces back and attack this pawn if I bring the rook to the middle. He played rook ac1, I went bishop f6. So this is a good spot for the bishop, but even better spot is d6, just because in the future if I want to activate this rook, there is no counterplay with rook c5. He played bishop to e4, and that's actually a nice move. Now I was about to play this move, but then I saw this annoying move, rook to c5 or bishop d2, where I need to play with this pawn. So that's why I stopped. I didn't play that one. And I'm thinking what to do here. Maybe should I go with this rook here? Should I just wait for him? Like maybe play g6, king g7, do some prophylaxis for my king. Or maybe I should move my knight, not allow him to correct the pawn structure and change the isolated pawn in two isolated pawns in the middle. That's why I brought a knight back. It's a little bit passive move, but I didn't find myself with the knight on d5. The better move was definitely this, than to stack the rook slowly, but I also wanted to play on this confusion card, so to burn his time a little bit. He went rook c3, trying to maybe stack the rooks, but on the other hand, the line is blocked. Also, maybe he wants rook b3, that's why I play now rook a d8. My pawn is now free, so if he goes rook c5, I'll take here, and then he might take here, but then the pawn on b2 is hanging. That's sort of my plan. At that point, we can stack the rooks and then fully focus on this pawn. That's another purpose why I bring the knight back on e7. Also, we want to do something for our king, like g6, king g7 plan is definitely coming at some point. He went rook b3, targeting the pawn on b7, so we don't want to do rook b8, we don't want to do b5 because c6 becomes a weakness, so that's why rook d7, logical move. Also preparing, doubling the rooks on the d line, so we are slowly focusing to create the advantage. He played rook to d1, passively defending the pawn, so we just have time to increase the pressure here. And now it's hard for him what to do, because the pawn is falling down for sure. He decided to defend it passively. Actually, I would keep this rook here because after all trades, then the pawn on b7 is hanging if I take on d4. I played g6, trying to, you know, also restrict this bishop. It's a beautiful idea. He went king g2, I just played king g7. Also trying to move fast. I don't want to spend so much time here. The position is very easy for black. But on the other side, I'm not still winning. I'm better, but I'm not still winning here. I need to be careful about his counterplay. Rook b3 is going back is a good move, but he went b4, which actually not allows him later to create a counterplay on b7, and b7 is my weakness, so he should focus on that one for sure. I just took, and now I went 95, so I'm targeting the pawn here, and I was very surprised that he took on d5. This is now very big blunder. It's critical blunder in the position. Even f4 now is just going in the wrong direction. Rook b5. Now it's very easy converting because he traded that important light square bishop that helps in the counterplay on my pawns. Now this bishop against my bishop is totally something what black wants. He played here and now c5. He also missed that one. Both pawns are pinned, so he can't take with this one because this happens. He can't take with this one because this happens. And he played d5 trying to pass it, but there is c4, double attack on the rook and pawn on d5. And we just simply take the pawn on d5. He tried to save the rooks. I played b5 now, then he went bishop c5, trying to control the pawn and also maybe activate the rook somehow, but we have a perfect control over the a1, so there is no rook a1 later. c3 is a nice move. He went rook c2, and now it's time to take control over the second rank. Rook d2, he protect the rook, and you know, I can take and play rook d2 again, but I decided to go rook d3. He went bishop e3, and that's another blunder for the position, because you see that he realized that I just take the bishop is free, and if he takes here, I take here, double attack. So he just took on c3 and forgot that's protected. Also was he alone time, so position is anyway collapsing. That was the 6th round, and I'll see you in the next one.